All right. Hey, I want to say thank y'all for tapping in with me. I am the ambassador, and you're watching live and unscripted. And I have a good friend, my old teammate, a
Yeah.
brother of mine, Jajuan Winesberry. And I'm
Yes.
going to let him introduce himself, and then we're just going to get to do our normal. We're going to chop it up. So,
Yeah.
my brother, introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah. So my name is Jajuan Winesberry. I'm native to Washington. I've been married for almost 17 years to my beautiful wife, Misty. I am the father of two girls. So I'm a girl dad. And I'm a real estate agent, licensed real estate agent, broker in the state of Washington, small business owner as well. With Treat Yourselfie. It's a photo booth business. And I'm also a newly published author my book entitled Unbreakable Spirit: How to Cultivate Hope and Resilience When You Feel Like Giving Up.
Man, I actually went. I'm gonna have to get the book itself, so because I need to read the book and not just the highlights and what it's
Yeah.
talking about. And on that, it talks about the fact that you was diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah. So when we, it depends on if you want me to jump into that now
Yeah.
or do you want to leave that for a little bit later in the segment?
Okay. I mean, we can jump into it now because I'm sure it
Okay.
was a part of how your book, right? There's a
Yeah,
major part.
so
So
the book itself is nine insights or principles on how to cultivate hope. So we
okay.
all need that reassurance in life when it gets difficult or when you're facing adverse circumstances.
Okay.
And so for me, I was diagnosed with bipolar at the age of 32, and it sidelined my life. And so these are insights or principles that helped me gain the strength that I needed to in order to function as a responsible citizen, as a husband, as a dad, and how to help me move my life forward in a productive manner.
Okay, so let's talk about the nine principles. I mean, I know once, I mean, to get that diagnosis, especially at 32, right? So, I mean,
Yes,
it's like you live life and, marry, all of these things, and then all of a sudden you get hit with this diagnosis. And so, what are the principles, the nine principles that help you to deal with what you was faced with?
absolutely. So the onset of my condition, there were initial things that happened prior to me actually being married. But
Okay,
then as time progressed and I ended up married, it started to up the ante as far as the severity of how it impacted my life.
okay.
And so I had to figure out a way or strategies in order to cope with what I was dealing with so that I can move forward productively. So the first chapter is accept reality. So
Okay.
that was a big one where I had to accept my circumstances as they were. No one wants to accept like a diagnosis, especially when you know it's going to impact your life in a negative manner. And in doing so, you really have to wrap your mind around, okay, am I diagnosed with a condition that is curable or is it
Right.
incurable or what have you? And so there were a number of factors that led me to initially not embracing the diagnosis, is just because I'm a strong-willed individual. I have mental toughness like nobody's business. And so it was hard for me to initially accept that reality. And then in when I talk about it in my book, I finally came to a place where I had to embrace accepting reality and then dealing with the steps or the stages I needed to be on the path to recovery. And
Okay.
that was so my second chapter has to do with moving forward. So
Okay.
what does it look like after you accept the fact that you have an adverse condition and then you have to move forward in a productive manner? Well, there was more at stake later at latter parts of my life. I was married, then kids come along, and so me jumping into a professional career, there's just so many different layers to it that if I did not take ownership of accepting reality and moving forward in recovery, then I would probably not be here. I would probably be somewhere, destitute and really have a rough go at life. So accept reality, move forward, and embrace vulnerability.
Mm.
So, vulnerability is actually what helped me the most,
Okay.
is because it allowed me to open up about my diagnosis when there's so much stigma
Yeah.
associated with it. Um, I don't necessarily like to go into the nitty gritty of how it impacts me specifically. Well, look at it as the fact that I'm an African American male. In my household, we fostered um, kind of a culture where we kept things in house.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, being vulnerable about something that you're supposed to keep private is contrary to that is contrary to everything that was preached or was practiced in my household. So embracing vulnerability was huge, is because when I chose to start to open up and started to share, that I realized that I was gaining more strength as I was opening up. I was finding that people could align with my story and they
Okay.
could see that there was a hardship that I had to endure in life, and they were providing me with strength as well in our exchanges and me talking about what I was going through. And I think this leads into my next chapter where I talked about extending compassion.
Mm. Mm.
Compassion
Yeah.
is one of those things where we know someone's going through something and we want to provide them with some hope. We want to provide them with the idea that, yes, we're not walking directly in your same shoes with this issue, but we want to walk alongside of you. And here is what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to provide um, a speaking exchange so we can talk about it. We could figure out ways to elevate where we are at, as far as like what often doesn't get shared is that when we're going through, it doesn't necessarily need to be a diagnosis in order for you to be dealing with things mentally in terms of what you're going through. It doesn't need to be a diagnosis of bipolar or
Right.
manic depression or those kind of severe conditions. You could be dealing with the fact that you have to go to deal with like a procedure
Yeah.
for something like a medical ailment, and that could sideline you. It could be something financial that's disrupting you, and it's causing you stress.
True.
It's causing you mental anguish. It's causing you to be have dis-ease, right? And
Right.
so there's a number of things that cause people to get into a mental state where they are combating these different things that are coming at them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So extend compassion. That is very important because people are going through their own challenges, their own struggles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So speak truth, right? Speak truth, the truth about what you're facing, being open and honest about what you're walking through is just because people want to know and people want to figure out ways of helping.
Okay.
People want to step in and say, hey, I was also going through something very challenging. My buddy hopped on live on his Instagram, and he started opening up about childhood trauma.
Okay.
And that takes courage,
It does.
and it takes a certain aspect of understanding that it's okay to share, speak that truth, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to also cover the part of prioritizing self-care.
Okay.
What are we doing to care for ourselves? Are we looking at things that we can do to alleviate our stress? Like, are we figuring out ways to exercise or introduce healthy foods into our diet? Are we figuring out ways to prioritize self care where we look at ways that are going to benefit our own mental well being,
Right.
mind, body, and soul, right? So that's also important. And then this often sometimes gets overlooked. And this is chapter 7, where it talks about practice gratitude.
Mm.
What does
Yeah.
that look like, right?
Yeah.
So, the first thing that we do when we wake up in the morning is we open our eyes and we're like, oh man, a new day is here. And
Yeah.
guess what? You can practice gratitude just in that simplicity, with the fact that you've got your next breath, you've
True.
got a roof over your head, you've got food in your pantry or in your refrigerator. Practicing gratitude. I've got a car to drive. You
Right.
know, I've got money in my bank account to where I can do those things I need to do for myself or for my family. So I practice gratitude all the time. It may not be pronounced that um it's something magnificent, but I practice gratitude also in this simplistic forms of, you know, um, some people are not fortunate to be in a first world country where
True.
all these amenities and, I can go down the hill and there's a YMCA where I can work out. And some people got to rig stuff up in their backyard in a different
Yeah.
country. They got
Yeah.
to figure out how to get some shots up, and so they're putting up like a makeshift basketball hoop up in order to get some shots up. And I could just go down to the Y and get that in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I practice gratitude is because it helps me keep focused on the things that are important. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for my health and being on the road to recovery or being in recovery. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for just the opportunities that I have ahead. I'm grateful for you lending this platform for me being able to share and get the message out
Yeah.
to more people. And in doing so, because I know that there is a responsibility that is tied to me writing a book or authoring or publishing my story.
Right.
And it talks about giving back. What am I doing to figure out ways to give back like you've done so for so many years with the Kitsap Admirals uh nonprofit, right? And so you're figuring out ways to give back to people who are looking for opportunities to play basketball and to extend their career by being able to travel around and do something they love. So I feel as though oftentimes people are looking for ways to give back, but there are simple things that you can do. See, oftentimes people look at the big things like, oh, you're an author, oh, you're a
Yeah.
speaker, oh, you run a nonprofit, and so you have access to all these resources. But what are you doing when you go out into the community? Are you giving back in ways that are expanding the greater good of the space that you occupy? And
Right.
so oftentimes people don't look for ways to do that. Oh, I could volunteer. I volunteer at the Emergency Food Network here in Pierce County. And so looking at ways to give back to the people who are less fortunate, or figure out a platform. If you have a community on Facebook, if you have a community on Instagram or one of these other platforms, are you sharing your knowledge? Are you coaching? Are you figuring out ways to give back? And
Right.
so it doesn't have to be that you're a philanthropist and you're giving millions of dollars to all of these different organizations. You can figure out ways to give back that is making an impact in your own special way. And I would say to the audience that is viewing this, don't overlook the small things that you can do to give back, because that extends, like I said, to the greater good of the community that you're serving. And then lastly, in chapter 9, I talk about inspiration. And inspiration is huge for me, is because there was a spark of inspiration that happened for me that kind of propelled me to want to cultivate the craft of writing.
Okay.
And so, because I was inspired, I saw someone else do it, and I thought to myself, if I can see them do it, then I must be able to accumulate the skills myself to
Yeah.
do that same thing. I wasn't the best basketball player on the court, but I was good at emulating what I saw. So if I saw someone who was a good perimeter shooter, guess what I was doing?
Yeah.
During my downtime, I was getting up perimeter shots. Yeah, they wanted me, because I'm a big man, they wanted me to play in the
Yeah.
post.
Yeah.
But of course, I wanted to drift out sometimes and test different aspects of my game. So I'm inspired in so many ways. I'm inspired by my wife. She
Yeah.
inspires me to be a better husband. Although I like to toot my own horn and say that I'm a pretty good husband, but we all have aspects we can improve. I'm
Yeah.
inspired by my kids. I'm inspired by my siblings, my parents. I'm inspired by other people. Look at yourself. Like, I also want to start a nonprofit sometime down the road, and I know that that takes some diligence. I know it takes some follow through, and you have to get all the pieces in place in order for that to happen. It's not an impossible feat, but it takes work, and you have to cultivate what you have in front of you and tap those resources. Just like you reached out to me and you said, hey, I'm
Yeah.
looking at bringing you on to my podcast. Here are some dates. See what works for you. And, that's saying closed mouths don't get fed, right? And
Right.
so we have to vocalize what we hope to have happen. So there's a lot of inspiration, and you can just glean so much from what's around you if your eyes are open and you're paying attention to what's in front of you. So that's chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a nutshell.
No, I mean it's. like I said, I'm gonna have to get the book and just read it myself. I mean,
For sure.
just the breakdown of it is amazing. Because I too want to write a book. That's something that has been on my heart that I want to do, and so it's
Yes.
like, you're encouraging that, like you said, what's my
Yes.
inspiration? Here's an inspiration. Here's a teammate of mine that is a good friend,
Yeah.
nothing but love every time we see each other. And
For
so to
sure.
hear your story, and to hear how God has allowed you to use your story to help, because like the word says, by the words of our testimony,
For
right,
real.
and the blood of
Yeah.
the lamb, that's what helps, right? And so
Hmm.
your book is actually inspiring me to say, okay, God, how do I, you know, what is my steps, or what's next, right? Because
Yeah.
for me to walk those waters, as like you want to do the nonprofit where we sit and say, okay, iron sharpens iron. How do we help one another?
For sure.
You know,
For
Um,
sure.
and just like I said, the gratitude, you're like the whole. So listening to the diagnosis, right? Bipolar. Give us a little, like, I guess, breakdown, because like I said, there's
Yeah.
this thing. People, they have their own idea,
Yeah.
right?
So there's different diagnoses or different components of the condition of bipolar. But when you think of the word bi and polar,
Yeah.
you're talking about two opposites, right? So you're dealing with the manic side or the
Yeah.
mania, and then you're dealing with the depression.
Got
So
you.
that's the deep, dark depression where life just seems hopeless.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have the will to go on. And there's different facets or different levels of how that impacts you. And so it could cripple you, or you could be, functionally depressed, and you're just figuring out ways to cope as the days go by. So that is that kind of in a Cliff Notes version.
Okay. No, no, that's like you said. Uh, a lot of us assume, and we don't really know. Like I said, for you to break it down, I'm like, okay, I didn't know it was broken down that way. And so it also helps to, I feel like, when you hear about your book, so, and the breakdown of it, say, okay, now understanding bipolar a little bit more, and then understanding the breakdowns of the chapter and what you have, and continue to go through to encourage and to build. And once again, that's the, now you got me going all into the Bible, where it talks
Yeah.
about, how God uses what is foolish to confine the
Yeah.
wise,
Yes, for
right?
sure.
So it's allowing what the world may think or look down on, and God uses, say, hey, this is for my glory. This is something that He can be glorified through us, right?
Yes.
When they see it. And so that's something, when I think about the Unbreakable Spirit, where did that title come from?
So, Unbreakable Spirit had to do with the fact that while the physical body may show signs of breakdown, like there were aspects where in my condition at different stages I was crippled
Okay.
to the extent that I couldn't move on. I couldn't be productive like I wanted to be and like I knew I could. And the unbreakable spirit has to do with the aspect of me that remained intact, that wanted to drive ahead despite the fact that my body was not responding the way that it wanted to.
Okay.
So in that unbreakable spirit, it's like that tenacity or the inner strength. And I talk about aspects of my faith. So those
Okay.
are like my anchoring points for me.
Okay.
And I feel as though if you don't embrace the fact that there is a force that is present that is greater than you, And
Yeah.
that is also greater than your circumstance. If you don't acknowledge that, then you're just relying on sheer will and determination to get you through. And I can testify from myself that that's not going to be what gets you through. It's going to have to come from a stronger source. So, my anchoring point, my faith, my belief in Christ, and the fact that there is strength that I can draw from that is greater than myself, that's going to allow me to fortify myself and to forge ahead in a manner that is going to be unbreakable. And so, Unbreakable Spirit was fostered out of that idea.
No, I love it, right? And I think, and see, that's the part we share the same faith. So it's a thing where I know that about you, right? And so I think that
Yes,
that's another part too, as the viewers begin to understand, like say, it's bigger than us. You know what I mean? It's not something relying in and of ourselves, but you know what I
correct.
mean? It's saying, hey, if it wasn't for Christ, if it wasn't for the Holy Spirit too. Like I said, that's when I was going through. I said, Unbreakable Spirit. You know, for me, I'm going through. I'm thinking. I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk to him. You know, just
Yeah,
to hear where these things, these ideas come from, and to hear it, I'm like, okay, it makes sense because of our faith and what we stand on and what
for
we
sure.
believe. And so I think that that's something that's important for the viewers because that's one of the
Yes,
things too. Because and people were looking for something, right? As I said,
we all are.
right,
Yeah,
how can we do this? Or we're trying to seek it, or what is it? And we go to different places or different idols or whatever it may be to try to find this freedom or find this the strength or basically find God. And so that's the thing where you begin to say, man, you go down some of these rabbit holes and you find out he's not there,
yeah,
right? And so to hear once again your story, and I'm thankful for you being able to come on and to share your story because that's
yeah.
the other part too when you start talking about, and honestly, like transparency, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's
Embrace vulnerability, being
yes,
transparent. Yeah, with a mental health condition, there is stigma associated with it. And mind you, I'm trying to do my part to dispel or overcome that stigma associated by normalizing these kinds of conversations about it. And so that was an uphill battle for me to overcome, but in embracing vulnerability and opening up and sharing with others, I was able to do that to where I got my strength back and I flipped it on its head, right?
yes,
And then I came out with this, So
yes.
for people to be able to there's a practice when you are a cycler, and it's called drafting,
Okay.
where the person who is out in front is doing the most work, right? So they are like cutting the wind or breaking that barrier, and then the cyclists behind them are drafting behind them when they are cycling ahead, right? And so there always has to be that person who goes out in front and does the work, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't always for me to say, yeah, I'm going to lead by example and go out and open up about some very personal aspects of my life. That wasn't easy by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination. But I have been able to do the work over the years through counseling, through therapy, through, self care and a lot of soul searching. And then also the therapy that came with me writing that helped me immensely along the way. And to do that now, I can speak with confidence and say that you don't have to be defined by your circumstance, right? And
Right.
you can overcome those circumstances no matter what kind of report that the doctor is going to give you, right? They could say, hey, this is going to be your challenge, and you are going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. And that is for me. Like, there is no known cure for bipolar disorder or for other mental health conditions, right? And so I have to be on a regimen where I am practicing self care. It also requires medication
Okay.
and the different things that I have to do on a daily basis in order for me to stay on the road to recovery.
Got you. No, I mean, I can attest to that. The transparency, that's something that God has allowed me to really use in my own life, and just with sharing different things wherever He allows me to speak. And it depends on whatever the situation may be, where it begins to, how I see it, it honestly, it begins to allow Him to be seen more, right? Because, like you said, we all have some kind of fault. We all fall short. We all have issues. There's things that's
Yeah.
going on, but the transparency, we try to hide it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yep.
so to be transparent, it takes more strength to be transparent than
Yes.
to hide it. Majority of us is hiding it, but
Yeah.
those who come out and you begin to speak on it, and then others, it encourages and it enables other people to say, you know what, I needed to not only hear that, but I'm going through this or I'm going through that, and now
Yeah.
I have a sense of comfortability that I can go somebody that I may have some help from, and I won't be judged. You know what I
Yeah. Can I
mean?
piggyback on that?
Yes.
Yeah. For me, I thought in picking up on where you said about transparency, and you were talking about like being secretive or hiding it. I personally thought, and I espoused for myself, that I thought that there was more strength in me being able to keep things in house,
Got you.
keeping closed lipped about it or tight lipped about my circumstance and not sharing with others. And I thought I could do a good job of that.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that is where I found the most strength, and I was able to derive so much from being transparent, like you were saying. And that's where I was able to draw that power back and say, hey, this condition is not going to dictate my life. I'm going to dictate what I'm going to do with this condition and move forward in recovery, sharing openly about my story to give other people hope. Other
Mhm.
people might not need hope necessarily dealing with a mental health condition, but we all, like you said, are going through different things that are impacting or that may be plaguing our lives, and we have to figure out ways to deal with that, those challenges that come with us just from being alive, you
Yeah.
know. And so none of us can sidestep those things. We have to face them head on. And like I said in my book, I hope that people will be able to derive those insights that were instrumental in helping me move forward in recovery. It is, I want to say it's available right now on Kindle
Yeah.
and in paperback. And I'm going to be working on the audio book here
Yes.
pretty soon so that people who just don't have the time to sit down and read a book cover to cover, they can just listen to it as they go about their day. So that's going to be in the works as well. So available on Amazon. Just search for Unbreakable Spirit, Jajuan Winesberry. My name is right there, and you'll find it there. Yeah.
Right. No, I love it, right? Because like I say, I'm old school. I find myself, in a sense, I mean, although I have the digital, I still like to read hardback
Yeah.
as well, so,
Yep.
and
For
then
sure.
just making sure you have the audio. I think that's perfect. Now, there's no reason, right? You
Yes.
cover all platforms
Yes.
where you can listen to it. Another thing I like that you spoke on is gratitude.
Yeah.
right? So one of the things that I know that we get so caught up on what we don't have or what we go through
Yes.
that we miss and we lack to be thankful for the things that we do have or do, you know what I mean? And so that's something, as I'm listening to the breakdown, said I love it, right? Because all of these things are so key
Yeah.
into this walk. And so to be thankful, like you said, hey, I seen another day, or I have my family, I have life, I have whatever I may have, because there's
Yeah.
people who don't have these things,
Yeah.
right? And like you said, third world, I've had the opportunity to travel to all kind of places, and so
Like, yeah.
seen some things where I'm
Yeah.
like,
For
man,
sure.
you take for granted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 100%.
And,
That is so true. And we oftentimes minimize the things that we do have in front of us that other people would look at us and say, wow, if I could
yeah,
only have
yeah,
that. And we're we're fussing about the little thing. Oh, my Wi-Fi is not connecting, or my phone battery is going low. I'm at
right,
10%. And so we often, or my favorite coffee shop is not open today, or just something very minute in the grand scheme of life, right?
yeah,
And we could just be grateful, the lights are on, we got
yeah,
gas in the car.
yeah,
Gas is like 450, four
right.
sixty. So I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah,
So
no, real
yeah.
talk. I mean, and that's what it is. That's why, like, for those who's gonna see the interview, I highly recommend. You know, what I mean,
Thank
the
you.
book, and that's the thing. Like, for those who know me, one of my things, the ambassador, I try to go out and find, the hidden gems or whatever it may be, and say, hey, I say you should check it out. This is something that's gonna really, like, say, bless your life, like I say. And I know if y'all listen just to the interview, see, I know the man, right?
Yes.
So that's the different part too, is we start speaking on character. This
Yeah.
is, the big gentle giant. If y'all see how
Yep.
big this man is,
Yep.
right?
6'8". Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's huge, right? And
Yeah.
so I had to, like, say, the opportunity and the blessing to, when we was both playing, to play with him and see him, like, just gorilla and just tear down a real. I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, if
Yeah.
y'all understand, he's a gentle giant, and his character really
Thank you.
matches. Oh, you're welcome, my friend.
Yeah.
Matches what you're hearing. And so to hear the book, and like I said, not know that these are the things that he was going through or struggling with. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And to now be on this side where he's transparent and he's sharing his story, that's even a bigger blessing. And that's why, another reason why I say I highly recommend the book, and I will get the book. And when I get it, I'm gonna have to take a picture for those who, it's not one of those,
Yeah. Who
oh, I'm just,
posts?
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, just
Yeah.
buy it. Just, no, I'm a true believer of support as well.
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
one up that. I'm going
Yeah.
to not only have you read the book,
Okay.
but then you have to have me back, is because you will have
Yes.
questions that
Yes.
are derived from when you read the book, because it'll give you some more insights and
Okay.
kind of give you a peek into my life and behind the scenes. So I would love to
Yes.
do a follow-up segment once you've read the book. So the clock is ticking, my friend.
Yes, I know, right? So we definitely gonna do that. So we'll do a part two. I'm gonna read it so I can ask these questions, because I
Yes.
really want to know. Like I said, it's 9 chapters. Just hear the breakdown. I'm like, man, this is. I love the way it sounds, but it doesn't, until I dive into it, that's really when I'm gonna really be like, oh, okay, yes, all
Yes.
right, one,
Yep.
what's this, what's that? So we will do a part two, and like I said, before we get off, I want you to let the people know again on, how to get the book, and if they want to follow
Yes.
you, if they want to have you come out and speak or anything like that, how can they reach you?
Yep. So Unbreakable Spirit, you can see it right here. available in paperback and in Kindle form on the Amazon platform. Looking at getting it on different platforms as well. It's not in any physical locations as of yet, just because it's been released for less than 3 months now as a self-published project for myself. But you can go to jajuanwinesberry.com, and the spelling is right there, Jajuan, last name Winesberry.com, and you can book me to speak. You can see some testimonials, and I'm going to be posting some footage as well on some recent updates, and you can subscribe to my monthly newsletter as well. So, and you can follow me on Instagram at jwinesberry, or you can find me by searching for my name on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, and also on Twitter. So, on X. So you
Excellent.
can find me on the various social media platforms, and you can follow my story, follow me as I seek to navigate into starting my own nonprofit as well. Going to
Yes.
be tapping some resources in order to know how to do that. And I just want to structure everything in a sound fashion so that I can build, because you can't build on a shaky foundation, right? You got to
Right.
build on a firm foundation. So, yeah, so that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, so hey, like y'all heard it. It will be a part two. I'm gonna get the book. I'm gonna read it, and we're gonna have a part two and do a follow up and have some questions, not only about the book and just the journey or where you at, and love to anything that you may have. I love to just share it.
Yeah,
'Cause, big support. The supporter of you and just all my brothers that I've been blessed to build this family with
yeah.
through basketball, and so and we
It's
want to
been
say
about 19 years since
yes,
I,
no,
yeah, yeah, almost 20 years here
yes,
coming up
yes,
that we've
yes,
known each other. So throughout the different basketball teams and
yep,
in the basketball community, it's pretty close knit out here in the Pacific Northwest. So if you know one person, they know the next, and it's
yep.
just like that's just the way it works out here in Seattle, Tacoma. So and out in Bremerton, Kitsap as well. So yeah.
No, that is so true.
Hmm.
Like I said, you realize just sort of how small the world is.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh wow, and the fact that God allowed us to play at a high level. That's the other
Yes.
part too, where like I said, the best of the best. We all get to build and talk, and
For
still
sure.
to this day network. And now everybody, we all have kids, and now we
Yeah.
watch them grow up, and just
Yeah.
still have our community. And so, like I
Yeah.
said, this is like I just don't use the term brother and friend. Like this is really my brother and a friend
Oh
of
yeah.
mine for like
For
said
sure.
almost 20 years. We've been
Yes.
knowing each other. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to come
Yeah.
on, and we will do a part two. I want to thank
Awesome.
everybody who took
Yeah.
the time to check us out.
Yes.
Please make sure y'all go and get the book. Like I said, you can book him to come out and speak. Just all of those really don't one of the so what I do as we're about to close, give one word of advice that you would give or leave with the viewers.
I would say it's real simple. Be kind to yourself. Is because like life is hard and life can throw curveballs at you. I talked about in a post that I did about accepting reality and oftentimes embracing the fact that we have to deal with tough circumstances is very hard to grapple with. So be kind to yourself. Also, don't try and do everything on your own.
Mm,
Find your community and the people that can walk in step with you to help guide you through that circumstance that you may be facing. I have a friend of the family who went through open heart surgery. I have, you know, people who I'm connected with that have received a diagnosis that doesn't look favorable.
Right.
And so be kind to yourself in walking through life, is just because life is going to try to challenge you, and life in itself can sometimes beat you up just on its own. So be kind and move forward in compassion, like I was saying earlier.
Hey, we're going to end our night with those words, and I'll be back. Well, I would say tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be back tomorrow. It's the unit. I normally have the street ball side on Sunday at 7. But if not, I know next week I will be back. I have to go to Kansas for a camp for until Thursday for about 4 days. So I'm excited about that. I get to go down to the Jayhawks and learn some things and work with Coach Self. So that's gonna be fun. But man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story. I appreciate your love and just being my brother. So hey,
I want to
to
say thank you for having me, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share space with you, and also to your listening and viewing audience as well, for taking the time to tap in, as you say, and listen in on me sharing my story. So I hope that was time well spent for those of you who are viewing this or watching it on replay. Thanks so much for having me.
oh, thank you. And we're gonna say good night from
All right.
I'm the ambassador, and you watch Live and Unscripted. And this is my brother Jajuan Winesberry. His book is Unbreakable Spirit. Until
Yeah.
next time, love.
Peace.